to the BHAW Army Wrestling Radio Show. I'm Jordan Tom, followed by the studious Brian Rowan reading a book. And tonight's guest is a published author. That's his book. He was also a Wally Crum Award recipient, 2012 Unsung Hero. He was a co-author of the BHAW mantra itself, currently residing at West Point, working in the DPE department, and a 2012 graduate, Mike Gorman. What's up, Mike?
JT, great to see you, man. So pumped to be on the show. Finally, long-time viewer, first-time contributor. Big things, and I'm happy part of it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. This is we talked about. I think we talked about last May. Okay, we're like put out like the episode list of like what order we wanted to go because we were so like just looking forward, and like you were in like the top like I think like 12 episodes. And then we were like, oh, we should just push it back. We don't want to have all the aces up front.
Yeah, I think I'm more of the filler between the aces, but I'll take it. I remember that we had a good conversation. I was down in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I was sitting outside. I think I had like 2 or 3 Greyhounds by then. You know, Greyhounds, it's my number one cocktail of choice. It's just vodka, grapefruit juice, a little bit of lime. And you called me and wanted to talk BHAW radio, and I was like, you guys are brilliant. This is a great idea. We need this. So you guys are killing it.
Brilliant. That's a first for me, but thank you.
There are dozens of listeners, as Coach Word likes to point out every day, it seems like.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I feel a little outnumbered here. We got 2 Ohioans. Is that how you express the term Ohioans?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you're good though, man. I'm a fake Ohioan. I grew up rebelling against my brother and my older brother and all of his friends. So Michigan, maize and blue, and Pittsburgh is my city of choice for professional sports. So works out for Pittsburgh. Doesn't work out so well for Michigan these days, but.
There we go. You're like kind of like David Taylor. You know, you started out, you know, and was an Ohio guy through high school, but then, you know, Pennsylvania guy now.
Yeah.
I bring that up because Jordan hates it so much.
That's some straight Benedict Arnold stuff right there.
Oof.
Yeah.
Them fighting words.
Yep.
So let's bring it back to your high school days. How did you end up at West Point? You know, kind of what's your story? What was the recruiting like? Kind of all that.
I'm eating dinner on a Thursday night, chicken Alfredo, and I didn't cut weight very much in high school. I wasn't about that life. But I was having a big dinner, middle of the season, and my mom gets up. Usually she doesn't answer the phone for during the dinner, but she checked the caller ID and it said West Point, New York, and she's like, "Mike, we may want to take this one." And so I walk over and grab the phone. I'm like, "Hello?" And none other than the Chuck Barbie. I hear on the other line, "Hey, Mike, this is Coach Barbie calling from West Point. You ever heard of us?" And I was like, yeah, I have heard of you. Not you in particular, but you're coaching there, so I think you're probably pretty good. And from there on, he just wanted to chat. And where I got my haircut growing up, Tony's Barbershop in Alliance, Ohio, there's a picture of a cadet on the wall with a high and tight, kind of a high and tight. And I was like, that guy looks cool. And he graduated from my high school, Marcus Coltsnow. I think he graduated high school in 95, so West Point 99 or something like that. And I got the Marcus Coltsnow special haircut for most of my life growing up. And after graduating West Point, Tony changed the name of the haircut to the Mike Gorman Marcus Coltsnow special. And so my picture is up on the barbershop next to Marcus Coltsnow. And so I knew about West Point, but only through the lens of that picture on a barbershop in Small Alliance, Ohio. And obviously, like, I knew the name and stuff like that, but Barbie just called me up and we started chatting. I think, honestly, he saw me lose. I think he saw me lose a really bad match, like I think it was like a state champion or 2-time state champion, wrestled at Penn State. And he just beat the snot out of me, and he just saw some toughness. And he was like, that dude can't score, but he's tough. We can turn him into a wrestler. And that's kind of how it started.
Was that your senior year of high school?
Yeah.
Who was it?
That's kind of late in the game. Did you like? How'd you go through like the nomination process and do all that stuff? Like,
Yeah,
seems like
it had to have been my junior. It couldn't have been in the middle of the senior year. I should have thought about this before we started
Well,
this call.
when did you get the snot kicked out of you?
It was late in the game, because they had already filled all their spots for West Point that I would have got in direct anyway, USMAPs. But he told me there's like, you're our last pick essentially for the USMAP squad, and yeah, it had to have been in the senior year, because David, yeah, the guy's name was Rella, yeah.
Oh, Dave Rella. I remember that name.
You remember that name? Yeah, I remember that name. There's a couple of those guys, like the Ohio State boys, the dudes who like grew up wrestling bears and stuff like that.
Yep.
So
you're telling me that there's just a bunch of just poor, sad little kids in Alliance just rocking high and huas, thinking that they're cool, naming it after Gorman?
Yeah, I doubt anyone's gotten the haircut since then, but yeah, and even back then, I would like the sides would be buzzed, and the top I would bleach blonde, dye it for baseball season.
Oh my gosh!
I know. If you ever found a picture of that, it'd be.
Do me a favor and get a nice headshot of you right now, and take it down to Tony's and update your cut.
Yeah.
For the people in Alliance, not for yourself, but for the people.
For the people, yeah. I'm leading them astray right now.
I forgot that you were a prepster. I should have remembered that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the Air Force, I think a lot of people have a similar experience with like the service academies, kind of trying to pick at the same pool of recruits. And I remember talking to the Air Force Academy coach, and he was pitching something like fighter jets and like, you know, the future, maybe Space Force could be in our future, who knows. And I remember thinking about how cool it might have been to be a fighter pilot, but it was all this like technology kind of stuff. And Barbie was like, we're like tough dudes who deploy and we do all the tough work, and we're a people organization. And so when I got to West Point, I was obviously, you know, like everybody else, kind of enamored with the name and the look of it, the Gothic, you know, aesthetics and whatnot. And when I met the guys there, you know, they were, I think, Colonel Cook, now Dr. Cook, and Todd Messett, and everything that they were saying was what I grew up doing: hard work, love your brothers, you know, teamwork. And it was very like human connected based. And that turned me on way more than being a fighter pilot ever could have. So it was a no brainer at that point. I was just like, this has got to be the place for me. I didn't even apply to any other schools.
You know, that Air Force coach, that just shows how much he sucked at recruiting. Because if he was recruiting a kid with a bleach blonde high and tight, that's way too cool for their academy, you know?
Yeah.
For recruiting.
Well, by that time I had long, I shouldn't say it. The bleach blonde high and tight was a elementary, maybe middle school thing. And then I started liking girls and had to like grow my hair out and comb it and gel it, and you know,
stuff like that.
Know, you get the comb, you got the comb over, Roland.
Working on it.
Yeah, B-Road's coming in. I like it.
So you get to West Point. This is a little sidebar. A lot of the viewers may not know this, but you get to Beast. Were you jealous of Second Platoon? So I was a Beast 2 PL in the wrestler company, and you were in 4th Platoon, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, I wasn't. I was not in the Jacked and Tan platoon. Yes.
We were 2nd platoon. I know you weren't. I know you weren't in our platoon.
Yeah. Were we jealous of the Jacked and Tan 2nd platoon? No. The answer is no. Although my main memory from Beast was because you were first Beast 1,
Beast 2,
Beast 2. So do you remember at the end we're like all out front, and the parents and the fans are all like on the plane, and Devin Kelly leads a breakout, and only Orion Ross and Dan Mills and I follow suit. We're like the troublemakers from day one, and we like break out of the group, and the cadre, you're like screaming at us, and our whole company is doing like push-ups and burpees, and we're out talking with the families. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, that was just rebel from day one, I guess.
Devin Kelly led a rebellion? No way.
Yeah, you don't say.
Uh, is during this time when so I gotta ask this because I always heard the saying, but I never knew why. But BHAW would say, "Gorman, where you at?"
I
I
don't know
thought
where
that
that
was.
was from.
I thought that was. Matt Kyler had to have started that.
I just
I don't remember. I mean, I kind of remember the phrase, but I don't remember the background of it. I don't think I started it.
Yeah, I think Matt Kyler started it because Rudy is always picking on him, and Rudy is the one who kind of made it cool to be like, "Go man, where you at?"
Rudy asked a listener question. Well, I will have at the end.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
It's a doozy.
Oh, jeez.
No, it's not.
So a couple years in, we talked about the co-authorship of BHAW. This is kind of cool and unique. I think you share a commonality of me and BHAW. Me and BHAW being the only ever AG officers of Army Wrestling history. I think you may be the only ever literature major in Army Wrestling history. So that was favorable to have you there at the time. Talk about the transition when Coach Heskey was there. We had Raph on, and he talked through the conception of it all, but that was like a year ago. So from your standpoint, how did that go, and what was your involvement?
Yeah, that's I guess we haven't circled back to that in a while. I should caveat. I tried to join DPE early, and I was going to be a kinesiology major because Chris Gill was one of the first kinesiology majors like when the program started, and I thought he was like the coolest guy. I was like, this, I can't beat this guy in a wrestle off. He's a kinesiology major. Maybe I could like be his buddy, and he could like help me wrestle and help me do kinesiology stuff. And so I initially was a kines major until I read Crime and Punishment and Ulysses with the literature department. These are like two like hallmark books in the canon of literature. And I was like, these are my people. I can't be in DPE. I need to go over here and be with art, philosophy, literature, and do philosophy debates and write poetry. And so only then did my love for reading and writing actually start. I don't think I read a book before that, honestly, ever, maybe. But yeah, so the writing piece blossomed, and a good friend of mine, Liz Benedict, went to USMAPS with us, and one of my best friends at West Point, she had just went through this 2-day leadership thing with the Center for Enhanced Performance, and mentioned that they left the program with some Army women's basketball creed. And the way she described the 2-day experience, it seemed like it was a profound experience. And so I went to Doc Z, who had been helping me a lot with, sleep stuff and concentration and attention and stuff like that. And I talked to him about doing something similar with Army wrestling. And he was like, dude, got it. Let's make it happen. Here's the idea. Let's talk through. And he introduced what's called the greatest teams exercise. It's used throughout a lot of organizational psychology, a lot of team building, stuff like that. And for those who don't know, essentially we would break out the team into small groups and discuss the greatest team that they had ever been a part of. And we would, jot down little anecdotes that illustrated a virtue that we all liked or a value that we all believed in. And then each of the groups would pick somebody to tell their story and some of the attributes. And then each of those groups came together and put them all on a chalkboard or, butcher block or whatever. And at that point, we kind of all voted, and it was pretty easy. The brotherhood, the heart, the attitude. And then it was actually at the time, it was warrior champion was like up in the air, which one was going to be the last one, right? Champion's heart or warrior's heart. And so I actually, this is my surprise for you guys. Let me slide over to my computer here. I thought the first one was going to be champions or warrior champion. And so no one has ever seen this before besides Doc Z.
Oh,
So
snap.
my computer is like super old. I can't even get on the network. It's like I can't get the new software for Mac, so it's like really old. So I wanted to save backup the other day
You take
for
that bad boy
everything.
down to Gold Coats.
Yeah. And anyway, so I worked with Doc Z, and while I'm going through this stuff, I found the original draft of BHAW. At the time, I was just called the Army Wrestlers Creed. And so I sent this really crappy text over to Doc Z, and he, of course, with all of his wisdom, was like, "All right, this is good, Mike, but let me wordsmith this up even better." And so I'll read it to you guys if you want. This is the original first draft, my first draft, Doc Z's first draft, and then we combined them into what it is now. So I read this the other day, and I couldn't believe it's written in Comic Sans. So if you know anything about me, that's like was my font, I guess, growing up. All right, so it goes, Army Wrestlers Creed. I'm an Army wrestler, and I won't be able to do this with a straight face for whatever. I'm laughing. Okay, I'm an Army wrestler. With my teammates and coaches, we form a brotherhood, in bold, rooted in trust, commitment, and heart, also in bold. I am proud to wear the Army A on my chest because I know the value of this family. I gain strength through their honesty and love. Love is there. Everybody love everybody, CJ Morgan. Relentless, physical, and composed, my style on the mat represents the hours of preparation in my training. My coaches have sharpened my skills. My teammates are the sharpening stone with which I gain the edge on my opponents. I am a warrior of the sport of wrestling and in life. I'll exhaust myself with effort. And so that's an example. We had like all these little quotes that we all really liked. And so I was just kind of like word vomiting on there. I'll exhaust myself with effort every time I step on the mat because I know that my teammates will do the same and they deserve my very best. Count on me. I am prepared. I wrestle and live my life with the +1 attitude bolded, to always score on the edge and to do the little things every single day that make me a better man. The words build and believe, Heskett, are bonds in my genetic makeup. The brotherhood is a part of my very soul. I carry myself like a warrior champion in every aspect of life, strong, proud, and a developed swagger. Ooh. Knowing that my brothers will support me, win or lose, I'm a fierce and fearless competitor. I am an Army wrestler. BHAW, beat Navy.
It's pretty good.
That's the original sketch. You can see it, like just a little kid playing around in his computer.
We need to get that printed off on like some Declaration of Independence type paper and get it framed.
Yeah.
With like a Mike Gorman ink feathers signature on the bottom.
Oof. With a quill?
Little quill pen, if you will. That's cool, man. I can't believe you still have that. I like it.
Yeah, neither did I. I was like clicking around and I was like, what is this Firefly flash drive backup? And I clicked on it and it was all my old poetry and English papers and of course the Army Wrestling Creed.
I'm sure there's a lot of good files in there.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly.
We've had a few listeners reach out and be like, hey, when are you guys going to have Doc Z on? We reached out and talked to Doc Z. He's writing a book and like finishing it up. And so he wants to hold off on doing an episode with us until after the book comes out in January. So anybody listening in, that's why we haven't done an episode with Doc Z yet. It's not like we're, giving him the Heisman or anything like that or not welcome on the show. It's more of a, at his wishes. But I'm sure when he comes on, he'll dive, head deep into this.
Yeah, he's a living legend, and I love it. I run into him occasionally at the library. We've had a couple nice chats since I've been back, and if you get anybody else on the show when he's ready, he's the perfect person to have come on.
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking of just as you were saying that I don't think Raph brought up before. What was the timeline of like how long, like when you got in these little groups? And you talked about this, from start to finish, was this like a week, a month, like preseason, a day?
No, the whole event on site was it was a day. It was 2 hours or so, and then we took the butcher block, and we had upvoted, essentially we had upvoted a handful of phrases and words, and then Doc Z and I took maybe like a week or so to write, and this is obviously 10 years ago, so my timeline is probably all skewed, but I want to say we each took like a week or two to write some stuff down, and then we chatted about what we wrote, and he was like, I think I've got it from here, and he had the structure was just perfect, right? So instead of like burying the word brotherhood, heart, attitude, warrior, all that kind of stuff, he structured it all around that, which gave it in my case, those words came in that order. I can't even claim having created that, right? Like it just came out as we wrote that. And what's interesting is Doc Z wrote them in the same order. So his first draft had BHAW, and my first draft had BHAW, and that was a complete coincidence. We independently wrote essentially the same flow and structure, and then it's wild how that stuff works. I love that when things pay off like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would take more like thinking about like the psyche, but like when you think about the program intrinsically, I feel like you think about the people in it, and then I'm not sure how you necessarily differentiate between like, heart, attitude, and warrior, like why those would come first, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool to watch the whole thing develop, and then he took it from there. So if there's co-authorship, it's uppercase C for him and lowercase c for me, and he really, I would say he took maybe another couple weeks, maybe a month, and so the whole thing in its totality was a 2-month project at most.
Yeah, it was embraced quickly, but I'm not sure anybody thought that it would stick the way that it did and have the impactful meaning that it has on people. Gorman, you got the tattoo, right? Boom, flexing. Bureau's still inkless.
Yeah, I wouldn't say inkless, but I do not have my BHAW tattoo. Still waiting on that sketch, Jordan.
Always puts it back on somebody else.
Bureau may not have the sketch, but somebody has a sketch of something he said back to his Beast days when he was Beast Cadre. Do you remember Raw Steel?
Oh yeah, I remember. Who doesn't remember Raw Steel?
That's the deal. H-Co is so for real, or something like that.
Oh
Something like that. There's a video I think floating around somewhere that of who is it? Like I think his last name was Dunn. He had to do it like in front.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that. There's somebody in our class has the Raw Steel tattoo right on the hind piece.
It's definitely not Dan Mills.
Definitely not Dan Mills.
So, like, I guess the initial vision you had for BHAW, did that like exceed your expectations of like how it would, like what would it grow to like today? Like, did you ever think, hey, maybe one day there'd be a podcast that was named after this and this concept, and that all these people would buy into this? Obviously, the podcast probably wasn't a thought at the time, but like, were you thinking big, like the potential of like this growing and like where it could go? And not to say that we've reached the pinnacle right now. I think we have way far higher to go right here. Now we need to go all the way up here. But
see, that scene right there would have been so much better if when you did this and then extended, the BHAW ink showed while you did it.
Oh,
dang,
Jordan, you have good editing skills. You can crop that in, right?
See what I can do.
I'll tell you what, I knew just from the experience in the room that day that we were doing something special that would transcend that 2010, 2011 team. I knew that, in my core, and I had big expectations once the product came to completion. But even with that sentimental day with the team and the coolness that Doc Z and I came up with, the same flow for BHAW to come out that way, and then his finished product that we all now know, all of that was, it said this is going to be great, this is going to be motivating, inspiring. But even then, if we had met all of those expectations, we've since blown it out of the water. And I think you have to give the biggest attribution, well, one, to each year. Every year that comes through, every wrestling team, they own it, and that's beautiful. But I think Kevin Ward and Ryan Tompkins played a pivotal role in that, keeping it alive for two reasons. One, anytime a head coach comes in, they're going to change some stuff up, right? So Heskett's Build and Believe was gone, and Chasing Greatness became the new, tagline, if you will. And I'm sure he may have, Kevin may have thought, I don't know if we've ever talked to him about it, thought like, maybe this BHAW thing should go too. And Tompkins was there as the team captain. Tom, love you, brother. You're out there listening to this. And he was like, he's like, no, man, this is bigger than this team. BHAW is everything. This has to stay. And Kevin had the right intuition to be like, you know what, I feel that we should keep it, and then just kept it going. And where it's grown to now, hearing the wrestling team break out of a huddle and send an email and be like, you're in my boxing section. They'll send an email and at the end put BHAW there, or a text message with BHAW. It's just like, this is cool, man. Like you can't script this stuff. It has to be bigger than that.
That's funny that they're doing that.
They're just trying to suck up and get good grades.
Sir, please give me a high 3, BHAW.
Any extra credit available? BHAW.
Oh, it's funny. So, go ahead, B-Rob.
Okay, so kind of you talked about, your classmates a little bit. I've been to some weddings.
Yeah, you have.
I was at this wedding. Everybody knows I was at those weddings. No, how close are you with your other classmates? I know, like, we've had some guys from the class of 14 on here. They're super close. I know you're close with Raph. I know we have, like, probably the most epic group text that we're truly chasing greatness. That's the name of the group text. We're missing Raph and Chandler now.
Well, I got Chandler here. I got him at the free NOCO advertisement as a NOCO athlete. So this is for you, Chandler.
There you go.
How close are we?
Yeah, like, do you still keep in contact regularly with, like, I know Raph, you probably talk to every day, or like at least text messaging in groups and stuff. How close are you with some of your other classmates? I remember, I don't want, seeing you guys all beast, I saw like, okay, there's these many wrestlers, 20. How many of those guys, like, you still keep in contact? I don't even know how many of those guys wrestled all 4 years.
The Great Purge, as we would refer to it, cut the team, sizably. So I'd say half of my class was a part of that cut. Half of the class above was part of the cut. So I think we graduated with, like 6 or so that went all 4 years. I would say two things. One, those who were a part of that purge still remain good friends and very supportive of the wrestling team. And I love those guys like they're my brothers as well. I'm certainly closest with Travis, Coffey, Derek Stanley, James Rafferty, and another former Army wrestler turned Army boxing, Ryan Johnson. Those are like my homies on the 2012 front. But something could come up, and Sean Hutchison, who became our team manager, he could just text me out of the blue with a question or like joke about something. So 2012 is a pretty cool class. I think any one of those guys would drop what they're doing and come help somebody out in a moment's notice. And you guys probably know this too, right? Like, I don't text with Derek Stanley every day, but when we do text and call and catch up, it's like it was yesterday that we were just hanging out, coming back from Christmas break, trying to lose those winter 15 pounds before the season picked back up.
I always liked you guys' class. I was obviously 1 year younger, but you guys always looked out for me, and educated me on new things in life and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, you guys were super close and just good people. I mean, told my mom, I was like, yeah, Mike's coming on tonight, and she was like, oh, we just love Michael, and I was like, yeah. I was thinking, man, for everybody that was at a tournament with Mike, he wasn't on the mat, he was up in the stands schmoozing all the moms, so that's pretty standard there. So
You got to make people feel welcome and a part of the team, and mothers sometimes need that attention, and so you gotta be kind to everybody.
Yep. But 2012, good class, great dudes. You guys were always close. And one of the things we want to talk about was the book you wrote about your dad. Obviously, that was, super tragic. And that was not an event that anybody's prepared to go through in life. I mean, I know that a lot of your classmates and the wrestlers were definitely a big part in just helping you through a really difficult time in life. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but we definitely want to hear about the book and all the hard work you put in to honor your dad.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a special project. For those, I guess the backstory is my dad was killed in a car accident. You guys obviously know this, but for the listeners, my junior year, so somewhere in the middle of Cal year wrestling season, and it speaks to the closeness of those guys I mentioned. So my mom found out at let's say 1 a.m. or something. She called West Point, and they were like, well, who should wake Mike up with this news? And she said, these are his best friends. Find a couple of them. And she probably listed 4 or 5 of them, but Ryan Johnson, Derek Stanley, and James Rafferty came to my room, woke me up in the middle of the night and said, hey man, you got to call home. Something bad happened. And so I was on the phone with my mom, and she told me that my dad passed away in a freak accident, right? So like charter bus, snow plow, big wing comes off the side of the snow plow, and the charter bus just simply, they're on their way home from a wrestling tournament, small world, and the charter bus just tried to pass the snow plow and didn't see the big wing, and it clipped the side of the bus. And so they've got this 50-foot bus, and there's this tiny little sliver of bus that got crushed, and it happened to be where my dad's sleeping head was resting. So complete freak accident. And those 3 guys were there waking me up, hugging me on the spot, telling me that they love me, telling me that everything would be okay, and all that kind of stuff. And then flash forward a couple days later, that next week, I'm in Ohio, planning, we're going through the funeral and the memorial and stuff like that. And next thing I know, Orion, Liz Benedict, Raph, Stanley, Johnson, Coffee, Michelle Bruns at the Center for Enhanced Performance, used to work with Doc C. They all come to Ohio, and they're there for not just me, but for my family. John Michael Simpson couldn't make it, and he sent a beautiful clock face, with the cross on it, from my mom. And they had only met a few times, sort of like, your mom and I had only met a few times, and she's like, oh, Michael, right? Like, that's why my mom was like the same thing, like, oh, thanks, J Mike. And so the bonding that created, in that experience, they didn't lose their father, but it makes you realize like how fragile life is when you can see somebody that you love lose somebody unexpected. And so I would say, that not that you want something like that happened to bond, but that certainly brought us closer. And a couple of years ago, I went to West Point for CJ Morgan's right after his death. I was at Kevin Ward's house, and all the guys were hanging out, eating food, relaxing, trying to keep their mind off of the toughness of losing one of their best friends and teammates. And Kevin was like, hey, you guys want to say a few words? I just looked at them and I said, I don't know what you're going through, but I love you. I don't even know some of you guys, but I love you. And I will do anything to help you, whatever, be there for each other, because when my dad died, my best friends and my teammates were there for me. And then, so be there for each other and help each other through that. And they did, they rallied through it. They just presented an award the other day at the banquet. CJ Morgan's father came in to present it. And it was clearly a moving experience that, everybody is just, overwhelmed with sadness, and also happiness that a person like that could even exist. And so grateful for the opportunity that we had to know these kind of guys. So, yeah. And so long story short, I gathered, I used the Ryan Holiday method of index carding. And so I have a couple hundred index cards here with notes. I ran a website about 16 months ago, solicited a bunch of When I Think of Dan letters, and everyone told a bunch of stories for his 27 years as the program director of athletic training at Mount Union. And I took all these note cards and put together a couple of leadership principles from my dad. And 15 months later, the book is in my hands.
Oh,
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's been an incredible experience. And, to close it out, I put at the end a picture of him. Doctor is in the front of the title. June 19th, the culmination of the book, the whole Dan the Man project. June 19th, my mom will receive on his behalf an honorary doctoral degree from Mount Union. So the family will all be back in home for that. And it's just super cool, man.
that's awesome. Well, not the book you probably would want to write, but congratulations on writing a book. I'm sure your dad is proud, for sure.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I really feel like I harnessed his energy. I was writing it and just laughing, crying. It was cathartic for a lot of people who wrote stories. They're like, I haven't thought about this, and laughed. And there's some funny stuff in there. So it was a really, really good experience overall.
That's cool. I appreciate you sharing the whole story too.
So kind of bringing it back a little bit to West Point. We talked in the beginning of the episode, you're back there as a DP instructor. You're obviously in the same building as the wrestling room, right now, being in Arvin. And what's it like working so closely and being right there with the team?
I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to just be back at West Point. I made a handful of career decisions to speed up my timeline to, ensure I had the time on the back end of command to go back. Because some people get delayed in company command time and they don't have enough broadening time. They have to go do something like 1 or 2 years. Whereas this is a 4-year deal, a year for grad school and 3 years teaching. So coming back in general, I was super excited and grateful for. But then on top of that, to be, back near the wrestling team and the wrestlers has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career and life. Unfortunately, with COVID and all that kind of stuff, I wasn't able to just go in the room and drive by anytime I wanted to hang out and talk and ride the bike and stuff like that. There's still a lot of protocol stuff that they had to keep the team kind of isolated for good reason. But all of my interactions with the wrestlers in the room, talking to them in classes, I've had a handful in my 450, the unit fitness class, and then I've had a handful in boxing. And it's just awesome, man, to be a part of, to see them and think about you guys, right? Like I'll see some firsties and I'll be like, when I was a plebe, B-Row is a firstie, and this is what he looked like, and this is what he did, and JT coming through, and now you kind of see these same characters. Humans don't change that much over such a short period of time, and so you see people on the team, and you're like, he is identical to this guy from my 3 or 4 years, and you just see somebody, it's just like rubbing somebody's back and working the kinks out of some soreness that they were going through. And I'm like, man, Bobby Doyle is my drill partner for 3 years. Those guys feel like about each other how Bobby and I, wrestled and felt. So it's awesome, man, being back and seeing the guys and being part of the team. It's awesome. So
from a DPE technical perspective, like when I look back, I think of like, plebe swimming, drowning, gymnastics, boxing. How much have those courses changed over time? Or is it still like, you giving out, you're not a gymnastics instructor, but I guess in boxing, is it still like you have your fights at the end and like someone gets the, gets not knocked out, but like gets, the bell rung?
Yeah, good bell rung is right. Good pun for boxing. I think the curriculum hasn't changed a ton for the old grads who are thinking like the core has or whatever. I think it's getting more robust, maybe little bit more multifaceted. So like gymnastics, for example, right? The class is military movement. Everyone calls it gymnastics because of cartwheels and round off, back handsprings, and the trampoline and stuff like that. But Colonel Gist is kind of, spearheading this new paradigm shift in Army fitness culture with holistic health and fitness, H2F, and then, the new curriculum. Another Army wrestler grad, Colonel McGinnis, is the director of fitness now. And so his role is to take H2F, this overarching paradigm, and create a singular or coherent curriculum from freshmen through seniors. And so gymnastics pieces of Mill Move will go away at some point and be replaced with more military focused movements. The ACFT plays a role in that, I'm sure, but I mean, people are still going to plead swimming and plead boxing and Mill Move. The boxing is still, I'm on the boxing committee. So that's like one of my main classes. They still, despite the challenges of COVID, they're still in person boxing. There's protocols to keep them safe from that perspective. But, today was our last lesson 17 for boxing. And we had, 8 graded bouts in one class, the first of which was 2 Army wrestlers, Dylan Sheehy and Tanner Craig. And so, I emailed Ned and Kevin. I was like, hey, you guys got to come up and watch these dudes. They're brawlers, and they're really tough and actually quite talented boxers. And people are getting knocked out, hit in the gut, vomiting occasionally, bloody nose, all that kind of stuff. So it's very much alive and evolving in a very good way.
Jordan, do you remember who you fought in plead boxing?
I remember a description of what the individual looked like, but I don't know who it was.
I had to box Dan God, my classmate. He was another wrestler, and he was super athletic. And I just wanted to because I felt like, oh, you're a wrestler, like you should. I felt we should have. I basically wanted to beat somebody up. I wanted to have some nerd, and I did not get nerd by any means.
I had the worst. Hopefully, I'm sure this has been fixed now, especially with Coach Ward's oversight. But I had the worst academic advisor of West Point history, and they put me in boxing in the middle of the season, so I would be totally sucked out during fight day, on a dual meet, just getting my bell rung. Took swimming during the middle of the mill movement. I even took this is the worst of all. My family was getting a kick out of this the other day. The semester after I had broken my foot and had a complete restructure of my foot and ankle, I was in soccer. I got a C. I got a C in soccer. I couldn't kick a ball. So I'm sure things are better now.
I don't know if we learned from all of those lessons of the past. I'm sure those things are probably still around. And you had a bad break. It's like the Linz Frank fracture, right? All the metatarsals and
Yep.
a bunch of pins and stuff.
Yeah, me and Kyle Dake share that in common. So
you're basically
no big deal.
Basically a world champ. Yep.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Colonel Gist. We want to have him on the show at some point. You interacted with him much, or is he just way too likable? As the master, I guess for listeners who don't know, he's the master of the sword.
The master of the sword. A little bit of both, I would say. I see him regularly, but I also know for the master of sword, people, probably have this conception of him walking around to all the different activity classes and teaching and mentoring. And although he does that, he teaches in each of the class. He and Colonel Wilson, the deputy, they teach classes, boxing, in fact. I've seen both of them in. But he also is the figurehead of DPE and is the face of all things athletic related. And so he probably has way more to do with USMA level stuff and USCC level stuff than DPE specific. Just like any other commander, they're up and out, and the NCOs or the junior leaders are down and in. And so he has a tough mission of balancing the demands of higher headquarters and then also being involved with the instructors. And I would say the second and third year RMO, rotating military officers see him probably more frequently because of like senior rater counseling. First year RMOs, we fall under Colonel Wilson, the deputy. So Colonel Wilson is my senior rater. So a lot of my interactions with Colonel Gist are through the officer representatives with the wrestling team. We'll do some Zoom meetings and stuff. And then, he's always circulating and chatting with people and asking how things are going. So from that like informal perspective, I see him regularly. Get him on the show for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, we were golfing the other day. He was in our foursome, and I was talking to him a little bit about it. We need to get him on. A few people have asked about it. We've got a list now. I've gotten better the last probably month or so of trying to get like a pecking order. There's no longer like Monday. Hey Jordan, who should we get this week? we talk to somebody like, hey, you want to come on sometime in the next couple of weeks? And they're like, yeah. Like, all right, you want to come on tomorrow?
We need you now.
Yeah, we've got a little bit. We have like the next 4 or 5 episodes kind of out there.
You've got a polished product now.
Yeah, B-Row didn't learn how to make a long-range training calendar in the S1 shop. Big facts.
Big facts.
I'm a branch transfer guy, so I know what I'm talking about. We got some listener questions, B-Row.
We do, and we spoke about both of the individuals tonight. Well, we didn't, but Gorman mentioned them. First one coming from Rudy Chalednik. Does Mike Gorman believe in the high zero?
Yes, I do believe in the high zero. When I first got picked to come back and teach, I was like, mill move is going to be my spot because I want to hand out high zeros. And boxing doesn't really have that expression. We have like immediate feedback. That's kind of our thing. Like, if you drop your hands, you're going to get hit in the face, so you get immediate feedback. That's kind of the boxing thing. But to answer the question, yes, I do believe in the high zero. And I always say to people, cadets, soldiers, friends, whatever, I'm always a wedding crasher quote guy. And so if they were to like argue back and be like, what do you mean? This isn't high. I'd be like, rule number 76, no excuses to play like a champion.
Excuses are for wusses.
Yeah. Yeah. No ACLs.
This wasn't a listener question, but this is a B-Row listener question on the spot. When's the last time you took the IOCT, and what is your time?
I have not taken the IOCT since being back, admittedly. And I certainly am not going to beat the new female record. I can't remember what the cadet's name was. She just broke the IOCT record a few weeks ago. It was on Instagram and stuff like that. I don't think I would tab it right now, sadly.
When I watched that video and I watched her do it, and like they always do it and they don't look that tired. Like I'm like, it doesn't seem that fast, but then when you like look at the time, you're like, wait, that's like 30 seconds faster than what I was doing it, or at that time.
Yeah, they're moving. We kind of all circulate through having to administer the IOCT or like be a lane safety, so to speak. And I'll tell you the funniest. I never knew this would be the spot that you would want to be at, right? You'd think like, oh, I want to be on the rope or on the shelf or something. But the balance beam, the self-talk that I've heard from cadets as they approach the balance beam has been the wide variability. Some of them are like, no questions asked. They just hit the ground running. And some of them like stop, do a little breathing thing, like say, I can do this, which is all good stuff. And then you have others, they'll be like, fucking name, man, I don't know if I got this. And they like, immediately start wobbling, and they're like, and as they start to fall off, they're like, don't do it, don't fall. And then they fall and they start all over. And I didn't know that was a whole psyche thing, but that's a tough thing for a lot of cadets, I guess. Their adrenaline's pumping and they can't see the beam and balance across it. So
I thought the horizontal bars were like the thing that made people stop and like, do that. I always thought everybody just like breezed through the balance beam. That's just kind of like the horizontal bar seemed like where people stopped and they're like, oh, I'm a little worried. And then the people who got really fast times just went.
Yeah.
If you're not doing this on YouTube,
show somebody that didn't go to West Point, like a YouTube video at ICT, and they're just blow their mind. They're like,
yeah.
Why are you shooting across pull-up bars? I don't know.
It's like Ninja Warrior stuff, just like on a budget.
Balling on a budget.
Balling on a budget.
Okay, the last listener question came from Sean Hutchinson. He asked, your favorite restaurant in Highland Falls?
In Highland Falls?
Yeah.
Well, American Burrito is the best, but they're no longer. They just left Highland Falls. They're now in Fort Montgomery. Sushi King, I would say. Sushi King.
Okay.
No. Andy's.
Thank you. Come on.
Yeah.
We spent many a Sunday mornings there.
Yeah. The most recent meal I've had in Highland Falls was Sushi King, so it's fresh in my mind. They're generous with the avocado on the top, so I was thinking about it. And but no, Andy's takes the cake for sure.
You can't beat a short stack at Andy's. It's
Oh, West Point omelet all day.
Eggs Benny was my go-to. All right, Mike, that was fun, man. Who you think we should have on in the near future?
I think you got to go current. You got to get some guys from the team. And I think the two to bring on next are what are they just looking at? Ryan Hetrick and Nico Mazzanelli.
The smart guys.
The smart guys. Two things. One, it's so impressive. They're going to Lincoln Laboratories and then studying at MIT and Harvard. That like the team has fundamentally changed for the better. Like we're academics, athletics. I mean, they are just so much better than we are across the board.
But do they have a podcast? Come on.
They don't have a podcast, no. But Ryan, he gave the most electrifying speech at the banquet last week, and I think if he put on the same pageantry on the BHAW radio show, then you guys would be the ratings would go through the roof because this dude is he's an exciting young man. So yeah, I'd go with those two. Sean Fitzsimmons got the Unsung Hero Award. He's a good guy. I've done a leader challenge mentor thing with him and his company twice. I like him a lot. The captains, I mean, do a senior thing. Bring on Bobby Heald and Lane Peters and those two seniors, Nico and you guys did a firstie thing a couple years ago, last year. Maybe maybe keep that thing going. Give them each like 10 minutes of airtime and spread the love.
Yeah, we got to figure out something. We got to do a firstie episode for graduation, but we don't want to combine have too many people on there telling their stories because we got years and years of these BHAW episodes. You know, we have to make sure that we get, everybody gets their 45 minutes in an hour slot. So, Jordan, what do you think? We got to get a graduation episode coming up here. We got like a week and a half, 2 weeks, week and a half.
Yep, gotta get on that.
Have recorded like next Friday.
Do it live.
Do that.
I'm not going up this year though for graduation. I went up last year. I don't think I'm going this year.
Yeah, I won't be here for it either. This weekend I go 2 weeks of leave. I'm going down to Charlottesville, see my beautiful fiance. She probably does not watch it. Maybe I'll ask her to watch this next Monday. So Bernie, I love you.
Snuck it in on the back end. There we go.
Yeah. We were too busy living the glory days. I forgot. I almost forgot, but I remembered.
It's good stuff.
Have you guys set a date yet? You're like, what's your plan? So you mentioned your fiance. Like, what's your plans as far as how you're gonna be in DP for a while? But like, things like that.
We're getting married next spring. I don't know if we're gonna say the date out loud. She might get mad. We haven't announced it yet, but March 26, 2022 at Veritas Winery. The party is going down.
Do it.
It's going to be super classy and also a good time. So we'll get married in March, and then in July, she'll move. So she's finishing. My fiance is an incredible human being, and talent is just one of her good attributes. But talent doesn't speak to it. She is incredible. She's in her about to start her 7th year of general surgery fellowship or residency. She'll have to be a chief resident in general surgery in her 7th year. And then tomorrow she'll find out where she matches for a vascular surgery fellowship. So it's a big day, and wherever she goes, there will be at some point moving in together and starting our lives and see what I've got laid up next after the Army go.
That was very impressive. Congratulations to Mrs. Future Gorman. Good stuff. He likes the sound of it.
It's a good note to end on. Appreciate you coming on. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, love you guys. I miss you. You're doing
Love you, boss man. Thank you for coming.
Awesome.
All right. See you guys. Have a good night.
See you, bro.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW Radio Show. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, go Army, be Navy.